Trifecta goes to the movies. This week, we look at what the top 4 box office hits have to say about our culture and about our future. I'm PJTV's Scott Ott, joined now by Bill Whittle and Stephen Green. And men, in this episode, we're going to look at 2 action hits with somewhat libertarian themes: Captain America, the Winter Soldier, and Divergent. Part 2 will explore what happens when movie makers dip into the Bible for inspiration with Noah and God's Not Dead. And in our members-only Part 3 deep dive, we'll ask what these films should tell us about how to communicate and how to change the culture. The director of Captain America, the Winter Soldier openly confesses that he drew the concept for the film from today's headlines, with an intrusive government that orders executions without trials, ostensibly to protect us from evil. Divergent portrays a class-based society with a test that captures your personality type and a choice that confines you to one of 5 factions for life. The hero meets a crisis when the academics try to take control by force and the nonconformists are threatened with extinction. Now, Stephen Green, this looks like a slap in the face to President Obama and the left. Could they have made the same films during the Bush administration? And is something changing in Hollywood?
Well, they could have. For the most part, they chose not to. They chose to lose money on a bunch of anti-American garbage. I clean that up. Look, Hollywood loves to put Howard Zinn out there. That's Matt Damon's communist buddy. They love to make the corporations the bad guy. Anybody looking for to make a buck is evil and not to be trusted. And it always turns out that it's rich, white, old American males who are behind every conspiracy in the world. But the truth of the matter is there is no place more viciously, wonderfully capitalist than Hollywood. They love to make money. It's all about the box office. It's who's making the biggest deals. It's who's worth the most. And that's because they're protected by the First Amendment. They are the last really strong bastion of pure capitalism left in this country, and that's because they're protected by that beautiful First Amendment, and if only the rest of the economy had that same protection too.
Now, Bill Whittle, in my mind's eye, you browse the hors d'oeuvre tray among the Hollywood A-listers. Did these filmmakers just violate Hollywood's 11th commandment? And will those involved in the films pay a price?
Well, first of all, it's not an A list. I don't know if there's a K list or an M list or anything. I might be on that list. Here's what's interesting about this, Scott. You said, you asked Steve if they could have made these movies several years ago, and as Steve pointed out, they did make anti-government movies, but they were non-fiction movies. They were things like Redacted, or if they were fiction, they were set in the Iraq War, because that was the point they were trying to hammer home. But I think the thing that really is remarkable about these movies that we're seeing now is you can't really get to the kind of bad guys that we're talking about now on a corporate level. You really do need to be as powerful as a government in order to launch drone strikes with impunity, as we can see here from Winter Soldier. And you really need the ruins of a government to give you a sort of a backdrop for Divergent. Now, the problem with that is, if Democrats are running the government, then they get the tar and the feathers get stuck to them. So, it is in a way, I think, a turning point. The final thing I'd like to say about this is, on some level, storytelling is, strangely enough, storytelling is owned by the liberals, but stories themselves tend to skew extremely conservative. It really tends to come down to an individual person making an individual effort against a faceless mass. More often than not, they've got a gun in their hand, like noted pro-gun control proponent Jamie Foxx, who is on a gun control thing right after Sandy Hook, and the next thing you know, he's in Django Unchained, blowing holes in more people than there are on the planet. So I guess what I'm trying to say is there's a contradiction for Hollywood where they tell adventure stories that tend to skew conservative. They tend to skew conservative, and they do well at the box office.
Well, in the film The Avengers, when the Black Widow tells Captain America that Thor and Loki are, quote, that they, quote, come from legend, they're basically gods, Captain America says, "There's only one God, ma'am, and I'm pretty sure he doesn't dress like that." That politically incorrect line brought my 15-year-old son out of his seat and brought a cheer from those in the theater. Captain America's matter-of-fact statement of his belief in the one true God is not proselytizing, but a calm, confident expression of liberty. The new sequel warns us to guard that liberty from those who would exchange it for a promise of security. And Divergent shows us that the erudite enemies of liberty are always willing to resort to violence for the good of the collective. And here's hoping that Hollywood hears the cheers of teenagers and geezers alike and offers more inspiration that stirs the liberty-loving souls of men. For Bill Whittle, Stephen Green, and the entire Trifecta crew at PJTV.com, I'm Scott Ott.
I'd sit this one out, Cap.
I don't see how I can.
These guys come from legend. They're basically gods.
There's only one God, man. And I'm pretty sure he doesn't dress like that.